bullying behavior, Elise, and we are not bullying.
Blah, 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 blah. Shut up. It is Supernanny Saturday, and this week we are watching Family SOS, the Bruss family. This just dropped recently. I'm so interested to see because it is about 3 adopted teenagers. Let's grab our beverages and dive in.
For several years, we did a lot of infertility treatment. I had in vitro done a few times, I miscarried a few times, and we decided that we were gonna try to adopt. And our adoption was like that. And we brought Addison home 2 weeks later. Started the adoption process a second time when Addison was about 2.
We asked her, do you want a brother or do you want a sister? She said, I want 2 sisters. And then we have the twins.
We do get to hear the adoption story. They were adopted as babies, not as teenagers. I wasn't sure. And they really only know Debbie and Larry as mom and dad because they were so young.
Twin girls are misbehaving. How much of that is because they're adopted, and how much of that is because they're teenagers getting away with murder?
Number 1, you want my father, and number 2, you can't control me, so go away!
I am your father.
I hate you, I wish you would die. Why did you adopt me?
You do not exist in my life anymore.
She has some explosive anger behavior that really, really scares me.
I said stop it, Abrielle.
We find out a little bit more data on the family. Dad is not home during the week, and we have some behavior challenges. They're typical preteen, teenage behavior issues. We have sassiness, we have slamming doors, we have you're not my mother, you're not my father, which, because they're adopted, they're using these hurtful phrases to make their point and get what they want. Now, of course, is that specific phrase used in every home? Of course not. It's because they're adopted. But teenagers and preteens will use whatever works, and they will be extremely hurtful if it is allowed. And I could already tell that there is a bit of permissive parenting going on here.
Both mum and dad don't agree with how they're raising the children because right now mum doesn't believe that these children deserve consequences and that they need to identify their own feelings, whereas dad is in another place where he feels his children need to take accountability for their behavior.
I'm studying a couple different programs, but I'm parenting differently, where I'm not using consequences with the girls.
I don't like the way you're disrespecting me.
No wonder why your children aren't listening to you. You don't have any consequences at all. Now, ideally, we all want to raise children, right, where they're motivated intrinsically. I want to be a good person because I care about others. But let me tell you something. I'm not fully intrinsically motivated. You're not intrinsically motivated. When you don't feel like getting up for work, sometimes what gets you up for work is the whole idea of, hey, if I don't go to work, I don't get paid. If I don't get paid, I can't pay bills. I lose my house. We face consequences every day. Consequences alone are not the devil, and consequences alone are not the answer. We need a combination of many parenting techniques that we talk about all the time here on Mommy Breakdown. And I think mom has 2 things confused. I think she has consequences confused with punishments, which we've talked about. There is so much to break down here. I can't wait to dive in.
What are consequences then?
Well, to me, a consequence is where you're trying to control behavior by demeaning or belittling or making somebody wrong.
That's what you see as consequence. Right, okay.
And Larry has a different opinion of that.
No, I believe there should be consequences. When we have an action, there's a consequence. And that, to me, is how you would teach your children to live in today's society.
Yeah, mom has consequences and punishment all confused. They are not the same thing. When a child lies for the first time, when a child hits for the first time, when a child bites for the first time, when a child says something mean for the first time, simply making them feel bad for something that's coming so naturally out of their body is not the technique that's going to be most effective. Instead, we give a consequence. We go, hey, I know that it's very normal to lie, hit, you're angry, you didn't like what your sister did. And that behavior is not acceptable. Therefore, let's figure out a way to handle your anger in a way that works with society. Consequences are necessary. We have to control our children's behavior because we can't live in a society where people just act on their impulses and do whatever they want whenever they feel like it, unless what separates us from wild animals?
How do you teach respect and responsibility? If they disrespect you completely, especially towards Debbie, she would get, "You're not my birth mother."
I felt that I wasn't connecting with them in a way that they felt really loved and safe and supported because their behavior was very angry.
I feel for you, Mom. Respect is essential. And the number one way that we can teach that lesson is through modeling. And I'm not just talking about how we talk to our kids, it's how we allow them to talk to us. Because if we allow that kind of disrespect, what are we teaching them? That it's okay. It is respectful to be upfront with our kids. These are the rules of the house. We are respecting them, and we are respecting ourselves by upholding and enforcing those boundaries. Because when we get older, and when our kids get older and they're in those relationships, we want them to be clear with their partner of, this is what I expect in our relationship. This is what is it that you would like. You have that communication, but if somebody oversteps a boundary, we need to raise our children so that they can stand up for themselves and go, you know what? No, we talked about this and this isn't okay for me, and learn how to enforce those boundaries. You have to model it. How are you teaching respect if you are disrespecting yourself?
Now this is not to my standards.
How do you reinforce that they keep up those expectations in the kitchen?
I just have to sit here and nag them till it gets done.
And does that help?
No.
No, it doesn't. So what leads you to believe right now that they are going to clean the kitchen?
It doesn't. That's why I said.
Why?
Because they don't ever clean the kitchen.
Why?
Because they have no consequences if they don't.
Oh.
Expectations and words are worthless if they're not enforced. And most of us know that, but we don't know what to do when the child doesn't listen, and then we end up nagging them, and it ends up hurting our relationship. Dad was on to something when he said consequence, but the problem is when some people hear consequence, they think this: oh, you're not going to do the dishes? Well, then you know what? We're taking your phone away. There's a few steps in between that we need to go through. Number one, is the request developmentally appropriate? Just like I'm not going to teach my child algebra when they haven't learned how to multiply. Then you want to ask yourself, is it within the Goldilocks method? Is it too much or too little, or is it just right? You know, if you want to start a workout routine, if I tell you, and you've never worked out, in the past few years, if I go, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do on Mondays, 1 hour of upper body, Tuesdays, 1 hour of lower body. On Wednesdays, we're going to go for a hike, and you're going to ruck, and you're going to carry. You're like, what? This is too hard. You shut down. Now, if you say, you know what, Kristen, it was developmentally appropriate. It was within the Goldilocks method. It wasn't too hard. It wasn't too easy. It was just right. Okay, then let's move on. Have you taught them how to do it properly? And I'm being serious because kids don't know how to clean dishes properly. Have you done it with them? Is it a part of the schedule, or are you just pulling them from something that they're doing that they're enjoying? I mean, imagine if you were watching your favorite TV show and I said, turn that off right now and come do the dishes. It's like, can we fit the dishes in somewhere in the schedule where it works for all of us, right? So knock those 3 out before you get to the consequence. So you look at your child and when they haven't done the dishes and you say, I noticed that the dishes are still in the sink. Pause. Why do we pause? Because we're not accusing them. We're just saying, I noticed that the dishes are still in the sink. And then they say, oh, I was going to do it. They were always going to do it, right? I was going to do it later. And you go, oh, yeah. Well, you know what, the issue that I'm having is I don't care when you do the dishes because I don't care. It's just we have to function in this house. Do we need to sit down and figure out a time on when the dishes will get done? I can't just wait for you to do the dishes because then I need to use a pot or a pan. When we approach our kids like this, it takes away the power struggle. Now, if at any moment your child begins to be rude to you and sassy, I said I was gonna do it later. You're like, okay, hold on, excuse me, let's try that again. And if they are sassy again, what I use is a program called 1, 2, 3 Magic. I go, that's 1, try again. Sassy again. That's 2, try again, or I'm turning off the Wi-Fi this evening so that you can have time to do those dishes this evening. We have to work with them before we go to that level. And this is the last thing I'll say about this because I know I'm rambling on. Think about it when you're in a partner relationship and something's bothering you about your partner. If you come up to your partner and you're like, you left the garbage out, and you start the conversation, how well is that gonna go? But instead, if you go over to your partner, put your arm around them or whatever you do in your relationship, and you're like, hey, how you doing? And you check in with them a little bit, and then you go, I noticed that the garbage was there. Oh yeah, that's right. And then you just say, like, is it hard to take out the garbage in the mornings? Is it better to take it out at night? Like, what can we do because this isn't working for me? You're going to get a much better response. And this is exactly what mom wants. She wants respect in the relationship, but there's no modeling of respect. You can uphold boundaries. You can enforce boundaries with respect and not let your children disrespect you. Yes. Let's keep going.
So in order for them to change their behavior, they need to feel some kind of pain inflicted on by me.
You're saying that kids shouldn't feel disappointment, that kids shouldn't feel. You cannot live in a world where you wrap your children up in cotton wool that they never feel any kind of disappointment.
I do know that things need to change. I don't want to see myself as being an angry, fearful mother, you know, and I need guidance with that.
2 big points at this parent meeting. Number 1, mom and dad are not agreeing on how to raise the children. Mom is getting a spiritual psychology degree. She doesn't want to use consequences. It seems like dad was open to it, especially because she's the primary caregiver and she's the one there with the kids all week long and he's only there on the weekends, but it's not working. The second point is mom talks about how the only way to get them to alter their behavior is by having them feel pain. And Joe makes the point of, well, yeah, sometimes we have to feel a little bit of pain, and it's not pain in the sense of I'm punishing you and I'm making you feel bad. It's that this is the consequence to your action and you are feeling bad and you are in control of that. And that's the release, the beautiful release that we can have when we parent from an authoritative place. It's not our problem that they're feeling pain. They're feeling the pain of missing out, going out with their friends because now they have to do the dishes. We're not going to save them from that pain. We're going to let them feel that pain because the next time when the dishes need to get done, they're going to do it because they don't like how that feels.
Mom and dad worked really hard on putting this list together.
We agree on them. We want you guys to agree on them. Would you like that too, Addison?
Whatever.
Whatever?
I mean, whatever. I can't do anything about it.
Addison, maybe we can talk
Just
about
stop talking
ways.
about it.
Addison, that's disrespectful. Don't talk to me
I
that
don't
way.
care.
Only Monday through Thursday, Addison.
This is what you want. This is not what we want, okay?
Do you feel it'll make a better home if everybody
I don't
cleans up
care.
after themselves?
Addison is being rude right now. None of this is okay, but she has a point. And here's what I see. Mom and dad are looking for approval from their children on being the parent. They're putting their foot down and saying, this is how it's going to be. And then they're like, are you guys okay with this? Is everybody, like, I want everybody to be happy with these things that are going to make you unhappy. It's kind of like a boss coming up to you and going, guys, starting next month, we're going to have meetings every Monday morning at 7 a.m. and then going, is everybody okay with that? Pick which you're going to do. Are you putting your foot down and saying, this is the rule? Or are you not? Because we don't need our children's approval to be the parent. Now, something I would suggest, instead of just coming into this meeting and being like, this is what it's going to be, because it does sound very authoritarian, which is because I said so. Instead, I think it would be kind, especially because they're teenagers and preteens, you give them the list written out, and then you say, like, hey, can you share with me what works for you or doesn't work for you? And then, of course, at the end, it's still going to be your decision and you don't need their approval. But if you want their input, ask for their input before you start saying these are the rules. Everything feels very backwards.
Bullying is something I am not willing to tolerate in this house.
She started it!
It's bullying behavior, Elise, and we are not
Really? Then why did
bullies
she
in our
start
house.
it? So shut up! Leave me alone!
I want you to uncover your face
No!
and talk to us.
Stop touching me!
You guys don't respect any boundary and limits around this house, and we're gonna leave the room and leave you by yourself, but I want you to know it is absolutely unacceptable and there will be consequences for how you're acting.
Blah, 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 blah. Shut up. Mom is talking too much. Dad is talking too much. Who are you talking to? No one is listening to you. Do you think she's listening to anything you're saying? Are you saying it to make yourself feel better about your parenting, to justify it? You don't need to justify your parenting. And in the end, all you did was walk away. There was nothing even done. You said you were going to do the consequence tomorrow. Then why didn't you just do that from the beginning? Stop wasting your breath, because you're only making things worse. Instead, if you wanted it to be, all right, we're going to do the consequence tomorrow, then do that from the beginning. When the kid is rude the first time, you go, that's one. Try again. Then they're rude the second time. That's two. Try again. I'm trying to help you and solve this problem with your sister. If you cannot speak respectfully to me, we are done with this conversation. That's three. Then walk away. And then give whatever the consequence is. Revisit it when everybody's out of their, brainstem, where they're being very reactive. Create a plan. What was the problem? How do we solve it? This behavior is unacceptable. These are the consequences. But you just talking, just do the dang thing.
What happened last night is absolutely unacceptable in this house.
In the past, Mom and Dad have not stood by what we said, but from this point forward, that's changing.
And if you don't believe us, you can try it, because we know all the little privileges you love.
And you lose a privilege and you start to cry, oh well, have a good cry.
It is improvement, moving from the permissive tone to a more authoritative tone, which is great, like Joe said. But there were just some phrases in there that I think will be contributing in a negative way. Mom said one and Dad said one. Dad said, well, I know what you like and I'll take it away. Why are you making it so that you're the bad guy, Dad? Instead, you phrase it with, these are the rules, and if the rules aren't followed, I have to implement the consequences. You have the choice to follow the rules, and then we don't have to deal with it. They made the decision to be rude. They made the decision to not do the dishes. You're just implementing your part in the family. It's your job to make sure that everybody follows the rules. And then Mom said something like, and if you cry, too bad. You don't have to look at them and laugh at them and make it seem like you don't have a caring bone in your body. If they're not being sassy in that moment and they're having trouble and they're doing the dishes and it's 8 o'clock and they wanted to be with their friends instead, you're like, yeah, this is hard. And I know that tomorrow we'll try again. You don't have to be mean while also enforcing boundaries. It's unnecessary.
For me, it was very important that after Debbie and Larry had spoke to their girls, that we actually just move on and do something fun. It's about these kids knowing that there are no grudges being held, but there are true expectations that need to be met. And that's why I got the whole family out playing volleyball, because I know they all love to play it. I feel like I need my board shorts on and my shades. You got it.
And this is the final piece to any good discipline program: connection, mutual respect, spending time with our kids in the things that they want to do. During the rest of this episode, Joe continues to coach mom and dad with the discipline and the connection. The kids even create these boxes where they're able to write notes to mom and dad, and then mom and dad can respond by writing back. It works really well because when they become teenagers, they might be a little bit more shy to ask bigger questions, especially about their adoption. When it's written out, it's a little bit easier. They grow closer together. I would love to see where they are. Let's check where the Bross family is now. There was no wiki for this family, but I did find mom and two of the daughters on Facebook. This is mom's Facebook page, and we can see if we go back to some of the earlier photos, she has the girls when they were younger. Here's another one with all three daughters. And as the pictures go on, we see them getting a little bit older. There's more of mom. I don't see dad in any of these photos, so I'm not sure about that. I also couldn't find him on Facebook or really anywhere else. Mom looks great. She looks like she's having a good time. Here it looks like the girls are much older, almost late high school, college age probably, because this is 2022. Next up, we have one of the twins. Some throwback pictures that were posted in 2017. Here is a graduation photo from 2020. Here's more photos with mom in it. So it's obvious that mom is still very close with the girls because she's in these photos with them. These are posted by one of the twins. But again, no dad. Dad isn't in any of these photos. The final Facebook that I found was the oldest daughter, Addison. And she doesn't have many photos public. We see some with her surfing, climbing. All the girls are athletic. I'm actually going to show you one of the daughters ended up doing volleyball, and there's so here's another one of her outside, her dog. And also with Addison, it does say that she's married to Brighton Hart. So that's why it was a little bit harder to find her, because it's a different last name. So the last thing I wanted to show you was the UC Santa Barbara 2021 women's volleyball. There's a whole page about her. It does still have Larry's name here as the daughter of, talks about the sisters. I couldn't find anything on Elise from her profile, but we did see photos of her through her mom and her sister. If you enjoy this kind of content, hit the subscribe. We will be back to using the wheel next week. I'll see you then. Bye.